All right, we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Divij Den podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is episode 126. And last week we had an amazing guest, 1K Few, and we dived into Jesus and religion. It was a beautiful conversation. And he's one of my favorite Christian rappers. So I'm very excited to have had him on. And this week we're going in a completely different direction. And we're talking to, let me get vulnerable for a second. You know, growing up, I did have an addiction to porn. And, you know, for over a decade in my life, I spent a lot of time on the internet and, you know, watching these videos. And at the time, for me, it was normal. And I think as I've come more into my religion, I've found that for me, it doesn't make sense because I have a relationship. You know, I think it's best to save that pleasure with your partner. But, you know, for other people, it might work. And I'm not here to judge. I'm not God. But you know, I wanted to have a conversation with someone that's had experience in the industry, you know, who's at the top of the industry and quite literally is probably the most notable adult film star in the world. And so I'm honestly very honored to have a conversation today with my friend Alexis Fawx, who showed up to the studio 14 minutes before me. I was late for my own podcast, but I did 10 push-ups to make up for it. So I'm just super excited to deep dive, but welcome Alexis Fawx to the studio.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me on. This is really exciting for me.
Yeah, I love this outfit you got going on. This is like, you look like you just walked out of a luxury hotel. Like you just got a facial, like a spa situation going on.
It's super comfortable, actually. Yeah, the Hilton's really luxury. Actually, it is. It's not bad, you know.
She's staying at the Hilton in Glendale. If you guys want to go find her, that's where she's at. So
oh, God, no.
You're going to get like 30 dudes at your door later today. You're like, what
Lord. No, thank you.
Well, you know, I really appreciate you coming on. And I don't even know if you knew what you were walking into, but
no, not right away.
Oh, okay.
No, not right away. We're in a WhatsApp group, and I think you said something. You had a podcast going on, and I was like, oh, I'd love to get on because I get on all sorts of podcasts, not just adult based. I think like I just don't want to pigeonhole myself in that because I'm a multifaceted individual. I do a lot of different things, and I feel like I'm pretty open to talk about most things on most topics.
Okay,
and
cool.
also get my give my perspective or part of my journey because I can only talk from what I've gone through and have experienced. And I thought this would be really cool. And then here we are.
Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I don't like doing, like I just told you, I don't like doing too much research. I like to kind of just get to know the person as a person and we can shoot the shit, as they like to say.
Yeah.
Let's try not to cuss. I gotta stop. But, I want to get to know you and your story because, your team sent me a list of talking points about your accomplishments and what you've done in the adult film industry and beyond. You have a coffee company.
Mm-hmm.
You're an entrepreneur. And a single mother, I believe, and you have a couple puppies.
Yeah, yes,
you got a lot going on.
I have fur kids.
Damn, but not fur kids, not real kids.
Not real kids. But a lot of people get that confused because I kind of joke around with it on my bio on my IG, and I said single mom. Mm-hmm. And then it's like of 3 fur babies or fur kids, and it's like 2 dogs and a rabbit. But people all the time, guys especially, they'll be like, oh, so you're a single mom? And I'm like, of 2 dogs and a rabbit, like
it still counts.
Or like the trolls will like comment, be like, "Oh, I bet your kids are real proud of you." I'm like, "Yeah, my 2 dogs are well taken care of. They're very proud of me."
Question: do you give your dogs tap water?
No, I don't. No, I have a special filter and stuff like that I use for my own drinking water, and I give that. Plus, in Vegas, the tap water would be very mineral, and so I'm not going to give that to my dogs.
Okay.
It would just be cruddy.
Yeah. I have a friend that only gives her dog Aquapana.
Oh, like a specific type?
It's like the luxury water. It's in like a glass bottle. Like she won't even give it water out of a plastic bottle, which honestly, we shouldn't even be drinking this if I'm being real, but it's okay.
Well, we're here. We're thirsty.
We need water. That's so funny. So we're thirsty. It's kind of like a pun. Anyways, so, I want to kind of take it back and get to know who you are from kind of your past, if you're comfortable talking about it, because, I looked at this list of accomplishments and I was like, it's a lot of stuff. Like you've done a lot in your career. And so I think for you to have done that, at such a young age, you must have had a very unique and interesting childhood. And so I'd love if you could just kind of take me back and show me kind of like what your childhood looked like. And then if you went to college, high school, like what did that era of your life look like?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. Appalachian Trail was my backyard kind of thing.
Go Birds. Are you an Eagles fan?
I think I grew up in a household that liked the Redskins.
Okay,
Are they still the Redskins? I
Wash,
don't follow
yeah,
football, so I don't really know. And then Steelers. I think those are the two. But go
Pittsburgh.
Eagles too. I'm not tied to any of those teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, small town Pennsylvania. I would go hiking up in the mountains all the time. Shoes, no shoes. I'm a tomboy. Four-wheelers, fishing. I was a daddy's little girl, man. My dad and I were really close for a really long time. Yeah, just regular small town life. I think.
Interesting.
But I was, I always was kind of in a lone wolf where I've always liked to go do things on my own and just kind of as soon as I could like go around the block, I was going 2 blocks. You get the bicycle, now you're going across town and all kinds of stuff. I just was really into the adventure of it. Which led me to I went down to DC for a while. I technically, I guess my parents, I ran away, but in my heart, I was just like taking a vacation.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything I was running away from.
Yeah.
It's just my friend was moving to DC. So I was like, oh, I'll go too.
You just didn't tell anybody?
I just didn't tell anybody. I was, they were going to tell me no. So I was like, I'll ask for forgiveness whenever I get back.
So you're kind of a rebel is the vibe that I'm getting.
Yeah, but not like anything that was, rebel in the sense of getting me in trouble. Just rebel, like I wanted to really, I have a zest for life and I just want to experience it to the fullest and in a good way. And so, I went down to DC. I had a lot of fun, partied with the New York club kids. Yeah. That kind of crazy era. Came back, graduated high school. When I was in high school, I also worked full time. Ended up getting my own apartment at 16. So I was very independent. My parents gave me that option. I grew up in a household where if you want to wear those clothes, you want to have that mohawk, then you need to get a job and pay for it. So what did I do is I went and got a job and I paid for it. And I was like, I'm making enough money. I want to move out, but I need you to sign on this apartment. So I did all of that. And I finished high school, graduated, and, because I was a little bit of a rebel, my parents were like, okay, well, if you want to go to college, you're going to have to figure that out a little bit, And so I decided to join the military. And my parents, they were like, you did what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving. I leave on February 14th for the Air Force.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah. What a way.
Yeah, crazy.
And because I just knew I wanted to get out of my small town.
Yeah.
I just felt that it was very suffocating to be there for me. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with small towns because now as I'm older, I would revert back to a small town.
Yeah.
But it just, for me at that particular time, I just wanted more. So the Air Force or the military was my out for that. And it gave me the independence and the adventure. And it instilled a lot of good work ethic. Working as a team. It was great. It did a lot of good for me being in the military. It really did.
And did you have siblings or an older brother that kind of inspired that?
No.
Wow.
I have my dad was in the Navy, but that wasn't didn't inspire me to go in. I was really up for because I was already living on my own at that time. So, graduating high school, I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't want to stay in this small town. There wasn't anything that I saw for me that I'd be like, oh, I want to do that here. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything to do there for me. So I just wanted to get out. And the Air Force gave me that out.
Interesting.
And along with that, I got a lot of the great perks with being in the Air Force. Learned a lot, made me grow up, gave me the independence, gave me the confidence to really tackle anything and be okay with it. However the cards may lay, if that makes sense. Started going to college while I was in, realized how much I love education.
Yeah.
High school, I was bored. So I was just a very average student, because I didn't find anything exciting about it. So in college, when you get to pick your own courses and find, yes, they have some of the basic English, math, all that other jazz, but you also can take these other exciting courses that kind of pique your interest. And that made me so motivated to do really well. I ended up getting straight A's, presidential lists.
Dang.
I didn't know I could do those things until being in the Air Force and just kind of being on my own to do those things.
Yeah.
It was really a beautiful thing for me. And I'm really grateful for taking those steps and just kind of making those decisions on my own. I didn't go to anybody for their input. I just did it. And I kind of still do those things today.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for it. And, some things work out and some things may not work out how you expected it or painted in your mind, but you learned a lot of stuff with it. So you can apply that anywhere.
Yeah.
Or reapply it and start that project over. And maybe it goes well that time,
Totally. I'm getting the vibe that you were very fearless. Like you had this like fearless mentality. So I'm wondering, were you running from something in your household that was causing you to want to get away from it? Or were you just, you had that vibration of adventure that you just wanted to experience the world to the
experience
fullest?
The world. I grew up in a small town. I felt like, God, if I stayed here, like I just would be, it's almost like I don't even really go back home very often. I don't know. It felt for me that it wasn't a place where I like could thrive. And I wanted the opportunity to thrive.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like that was there for me.
Interesting. Very cool. So you take these big steps and you find yourself in college or in the Air Force. What happens after that? Like I assume at some point you dipped out of the Air Force and you went into the real world. Did you have a job? Like what was that initial exposure?
Yeah. So let's see. I went from North Dakota to Bowling Air Force Base, DC. I ended up getting out in DC and finishing up college, graduating at Towson with a physiological psychology degree, specialization in neuroanatomy. And I was like, what am I going to do with this? I was on the phone with my mom. I flipped a coin between Phoenix, Arizona and Miami, Florida. Tails was Miami, Florida. So it landed on Tails. I packed all my stuff from Baltimore and I moved to Miami, Florida.
You just left it up to chance.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I feel like a lot of things, or part of this podcast is I like to talk about mental health and anxiety and all these things. And I feel like overthinking is such a common thing, especially men. I mean, women, men, everybody. Like, I think it's an epidemic, and I think it can actually cause a lot of issues. But it sounds like you didn't have that. You were just like, I'm gonna go to Miami. Like,
yeah, I feel like overthinking causes anxiety.
Yeah, it does.
I think it. Why are we going to overthink this through? Like, do I overthink some things? Probably. Yeah, I probably do. Yeah. I like to, especially when I'm writing something or whatever, I want to think through those steps a little bit. But I mean, I think when we're making steps in our life, I think it's great to take those big leaps and take a risk. I think it's important to do that because you learn a lot more about yourself on a deeper level, your character. Where's that character come from? It comes from having some challenges in your life.
Yeah.
And to be able to develop that, I feel so fortunate for everything I've gone through in my entire life. Good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, because it's developed character in me. I feel very fortunate that I've been able to have those experiences. It's taught me, where kindness, having kindness as my characteristic, super important. Yeah. It's not just, being nice and having a nice little personality trait. It's a characteristic within inside you.
Yeah. Amen.
So developing that.
Amen. We'll talk about gratitude and love and kind. Those are the things that I'm super passionate about, because I think when you find that frequency and that vibration, you start connecting with people on a level that's unimaginable.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
100%.
So we'll get into that. But I want to go to Miami for a second because I've been to Miami. I was on Fuckboy Island, a TV show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, crazy. And when we
what
filmed
a name. Jeez.
I know. It was with Nikki Glazer. Shout out to Nikki. She just did the Tom Brady one. Yeah, but we, as soon as we got off the show, all the guys immediately packed our bags. We went straight to Miami to have like a week just to party and turn up and do what, young kids do. And that was the clubs and the music and the, a little bit of alcohol, whatever. And so that's when I think Miami, I think of partying, sex, drugs, alcohol, sinning, and all that stuff. So is that where you got your initial exposure into the adult world? Was it in Miami?
That's where I answered the Craigslist ad. But in Miami, I was working corporate jobs. So it was doing litigation, consulting, and research because I graduated with this degree. So I did a lot of behavioral statistics and stuff like that. So what was I going to do with it? I thought I had to go this corporate route, do the 9 to 5, everything like that. So I flipped a coin. I went down to Miami, took 6 months off, enjoyed the parties and all this stuff. I was young. I was in my 20s. Why not? And eventually I had to get a job. I applied. I ended up getting, one corporate job, which did the litigation, consulting, and research. From there, I did some insurance work. And then I landed a job at an intellectual property law firm where I wrote patents, mostly patents. I worked with inventors and wrote patents for the United States Patent Office and also internationally. And I also wrote trademarks and copyrights as well, but mostly patents was my thing.
Yeah.
I love the intricate. Maybe that's where I like to overthink the stuff. But I love the intricacy of whether it's a design patent or a functional patent or whatever it may be. It's just really interesting. Really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to work on some really cool patents where I'm like, interesting.
What's like the most interesting patent that you've seen?
There was some patents that were, well, just even like I remember like all the facial recognition stuff that was being developed that we see today. That's just wild. Because like when you're looking at these patents, like what are these people thinking about? Like facial recognition in the airports. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
People are so smart. I grew up watching Shark Tank, and I saw these patents coming out, like, and I'm a big fan of Lori Greiner and what she's been able to do, but there's some interesting stuff, bro.
Yeah, and inventors are so smart and intelligent, and some of the medical patents I was able to just be a part of, and just, all I'm doing is helping, taking their ideas, writing it so it can get approved, and they can have their ideas patented, and it's just, wow, where did your brain think of this? Like,
crazy.
Just crazy. So that was a good experience.
There was a guy on Shark Tank. He honestly came up with what I think now that I look at it, was like the first version of Neuralink. Like it was a chip that you put in your brain, and everyone on the Shark Tank gave him shit. They were like, this is stupid. Like he didn't get a deal. And now 10 years later, we got Neuralink.
Yeah.
So I want to find that guy, because that guy should sue Elon and get his freaking money back, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that's so crazy. See, okay, you were doing this corporate stuff.
Yeah, so doing the corporate stuff. And what I realized with that, doing corporate, you're working for somebody else's dream. There is no 40-hour weeks, especially with emails now and everything like that. You're working like on a Friday night, or your boss sends an email on a Saturday. You're expected to answer back and all these things. And I just felt very unhappy. And so when you're unhappy, what do? You take it out on bad things. So, unhappy would be like making it to happy hour on Thursday nights and making happy hour on Friday after work. What are you going to do? You sit around and you drink with your buddies, you bitch about work, you do all these things. Saturday turns into a party. Sunday, you're doing the brunch in Miami, and then all of a sudden you got to go to work on Monday. So I was living this rat race of this corporate world of happy hours and just wasting a lot of time. I was like getting up early, not seeing the sun, getting home before, after the sun was already down. So dark. It was just very dark. And I just didn't want to live that way anymore. So I hauled off and quit everything. I quit my friends. I quit the parties. I quit the corporate job. And I took some time off for myself. And I was like, what am I going to do? Because that is not how I wanted to live my life anymore.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a way where I could create stability in my life and have autonomy over my time and do things that make me happy and create a space where I can, afford to do passions and to just afford life, and have experience. Nothing like too crazy, just afford life. Life is expensive in a lot of ways.
For sure.
And just to have really, I think it was the stability that I also wanted to create. And I felt like with a corporate job and working for other people, you just reach I just reached a salary ceiling. Like there was nothing where I was going to go. So that was boring. And that just keeps you like huddled. It's like, what am I going to do? Get like 14 other jobs just to live a life? Yeah. No, it's not what I wanted to do. Now, 100%. It might work for somebody else. That's great. I can only work from my own personal. So yeah, I took some time off, and then it was time to get a job. And I've always been a free spirit. I don't have a problem with, talking about sex. I have, nothing like that. I've watched porn. I wouldn't say I was ever like addicted where I had to watch it or anything like that often. But I knew about it, and I saw a Craigslist ad to be an extra, and I was like, oh my God, to be an extra, this is crazy. So I went down by myself, answered it by myself, went down by myself. I was an adult. I was in my 30s at the time. So it wasn't like I was brand spanking new at 18, fresh, whatever. Yeah. I had some life experiences.
For sure.
I've had relationships. I wasn't going to have to ask my parents for anything at that particular time. And I went
Did you
down.
tell anyone that you were going to go do this?
No, I did it all on my own.
Okay.
No, I do that a lot though.
Yeah.
I just like with the military, I didn't tell anybody until after I signed up. I just like to make my decisions, do it, and then I tell people about it. Went down there by myself. They went through a laundry list of like, well, if you want to, kiss your friend or show your tits, you can make this amount of money. And, in the background, I think you made like $50 clapping or whatever. And they were only going to, I think they were only going to blowjob that day. And I just raised my hand. I was like, yeah, no big deal.
Wow.
I'll just do it.
Yeah. Crazy.
I just did it. I wasn't like, it wasn't much I didn't think, what is somebody going to think about? I just, because I never cared about any of that. I just make my own decisions, and either people are going to ride with me or they're not going to ride with me. And that's totally okay. People can make their own decisions not to accept that.
Yeah. Question. When you see this ad on Craigslist, and you see this ad for this extra in an adult film, when you see it, because I'm thinking if I scroll past that, there must have been like a natural curiosity for you to click on it and then actually go deeper and explore it, and then map sitting actually arrive, and then you're going deeper. You're raising your hand for the blowjob, which is very brave and interesting. Was that step taken because you had some sort of lack in your sex life or in your personal life that you felt like you needed to fill? Like, was it a void for you? It wasn't.
No, not at all. I don't do what I do now because there's a void at all.
Yeah. So it stems. Where does the interest in the industry stem from, I guess?
I've always liked the industry. I like the free spirit of sexuality. I like the expression of it. It's entertainment. It's not education, please. Do not look at pornography as education. It's not. It's purely adult entertainment, and adult, want to emphasize on that, and entertainment. I never bothered me, and I never looked at it as something I could do to make money. And then once I realized I could, I was like, oh, and I get to have all this other extra time, and I can set up these other businesses. I can pay off my student loans. I can put money aside for savings. I can do all these other things. And it really became the autonomy over my own time, and I've obviously be able to create the stability that I have been able to do for myself. Yeah,
and you've done a great job, obviously, from what I've seen.
But it's not like a drive. It's not like, oh my God, I have to have sex. I got to do these acts, or I want to work with somebody. It's totally not like that at all on set. It's just not for me.
I'm very curious, like what it's, because I've never actually talked to a porn star in person. This is my first time.
Oh.
Besides Kendra Spade, who I don't know if you know her, but I met her a couple times. Yeah. She's great. She's a cool person. But so it sounds like your initial foray into the adult industry didn't stem from a desperation or a sadness or a void. It stemmed from just purely, hey, this could be a cool financial opportunity.
Curiosity. Like, and then like, oh, this could be a financial opportunity. And at the time when I did this in 2010, I had no idea I was going to be making a full career out of it at that particular time. It was not even like, I didn't even like, it kind of dawned on me years after the point. I'm like, oh, this is actually turning out to be a career. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah. And I'm getting accolades for this. This is wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of really went into it like a very whimsical type of way, to be honest.
And did you have a partner at the time? Like, did you have a boyfriend or anything like that? Okay.
No, I've had good and bad relationships, like anybody has.
Yeah.
My relationships have always been very long. Usually, been with, I think, probably like 4 or 3 years, most of my relationships. But at that particular time, I was single.
Yeah.
In my 30s. Who was going to call? Mom, do you care if, she wasn't paying my bills for years. I'm not going to call my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, I care for myself. I'm responsible for myself.
Yeah. So, okay. Interesting. So you do this first scene. And at that moment when you did that first scene, was there like this is for me, like I'm going to keep pursuing it? Like, how did you get deeper into the industry from there? How did it keep going?
I kept getting booked for scenes, and I liked the money that I was getting at that particular time. I was like, oh, wow, I can really make some moves and make my life better and make myself better as a person. And isn't that the whole goal? Don't you want to make yourself better as a human being?
Absolutely.
So it allowed me to do those things. It allowed me to give where I wanted to give. And it's been a really wonderful career to me so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kept getting booked for scenes. I kept, I ended up getting contracted with Bang Bros. That was where the main headquarters was at that particular time. And also what I realized with the adult industry too, and maybe this could be a misconception. Again, I'm speaking from my own journey. I've always been able to say what I want to wear, how my makeup's done, my hair is done, who I want to work with, who I don't want to work with, what acts I want to do. We go through a whole list of those things. So I've always had the power to say no. Not that I've always had that instilled in me from the beginning. So yeah, I've had a very positive experience.
It's very interesting to hear that, because I've heard a lot of stories from other adult film stars who are in the industry, and there seems to be a common trend of it's a toxic industry. I mean, people commit suicide from it. Like there's the dark side of the porn industry. I think there's even a documentary about it. And it sounds like your experience has been completely opposite. Like you're saying it's a bright, fun.
I've had a very opposite. Like I've felt very empowered as a female. Like I've never worked I was more afraid to say no to things and working in an office, working for attorneys, than I will say no in a heartbeat if I don't want to do it. It's my body, it's my mind. I have to be okay with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I only do those things that I'm okay with, in certain respects. But like, yeah, I've had a very positive experience.
Yeah.
But, maybe that came from, starting it in my 30s and having life experience before that. I don't know. But I've had a very positive experience. That's also just who I am. I'm going to say no to things I don't want to do.
Yeah.
You
do.
And I also have to say, being that I've worked in other environments, there's toxic environments in law firms.
This is true.
There's toxic environments in every industry.
This is true.
There's kind people and there's assholes.
You just got to stay away from the assholes.
In every industry that we're in. There's going to be people that are going to take advantage of you in the office, and there could be people that may try to take advantage of you on set, whether it's a mainstream or it's an adult work. So you have to be self-aware, be awake, like understand what's happening and what's going on.
Yeah. You mentioned your parents a couple times. I'm curious, and I'm sure you've gotten this question a lot, but do you remember the time when your parents found out about what you do?
Oh, I told them afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, what was their reaction?
Well, my dad passed away when I was 21.
So sorry.
Thank you. And my mom, she didn't really have anything to say. I mean, I was in my 30s. My mom and I, we have a good relationship. But her opinions on what I do or who I am as a person has never affected me. I just kind of do what I want to do.
Yeah. Has she been supportive of the journey for you?
Yeah. Especially when she saw like the things I'm able to do for myself and for others, and do it without even, it's not even like a second thought. Like, oh, you need help. Okay, let's do it. What do you need help with?
Yeah.
So after seeing that, I think my mom was definitely on board.
Very awesome. You mentioned your father, and please stop me if you're not comfortable, speaking about it. But did the death of your father have any contributing factor into you entering the industry? Do you think, like, was there any correlation between not having a father figure around after your 20s and being in the industry?
No, I was already on my own in my 20s. Okay. I've already been in the military and going to college and supporting myself 100%.
Yeah.
My dad was always somebody I could always call. I was, daddy's little girl until he died. So it wasn't, I didn't take his, I don't know if I just have I don't know if it's weird or whatever. I don't know. Death doesn't really, I don't want to say death doesn't make me sad, but I don't have when death happens, I don't go into this negative spiraling effect, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think without death, life would have no meaning. And, without life, what would death be?
Yeah.
So you need both of those things.
You do.
I think knowing that, and just, I think that kind of helps, or has helped me transmute any of those negative energies in that sense and transmute it into something more positive and something more constructive or beneficial to me in my life.
That's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful perspective. I'm actually reading a book on grief and death right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super fascinated with this concept because my mom got super sick. She got a double lung transplant and she's still alive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, glory to God, she's still with us. But I started to wanting to train my mind on how to deal with grief and you know, God forbid someone in my family does pass, I'm able to get through that grieving process quickly so I can get back to being kind and joyous and high vibration, you know, and living a positive life. And I realized that grief is a price that we pay for deep love when
Mm-hmm.
the people around us are alive. And I started to realize that like death is actually beautiful. Like my mom had a friend that passed away yesterday and she went to a funeral and she called me, you know, FaceTime me crying and just bawling. And I was like, Mom, like you have to celebrate the life that that person had. Like God called her home. It was her time to go to heaven and she's in a much better place than she is here. And we just had this beautiful conversation about death. And I just love your outlook on that. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think, and I always I talk about death with my closest friends and my team all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want I don't want sadness. I want a celebration. I'm living a good life. I've been able to accomplish some really beautiful things.
Yeah.
And I hope to further this, you know, accomplishing beautiful things and all that. So please celebrate. Like if there's any tears, I want it from laughter. Laugh
Amen.
so hard your stomach hurts and you're crying, because that's how I try to live every day. And if you want to celebrate me, that's how you should celebrate me, whether I'm living or whether I'm dead. And I think that's just, I don't know. I think we should have a lot more adult, fluid, conversations with our loved ones about life and death and about like all those things. It's so important.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of where your belief lays, you know, or where your faith is, I think, you know, those are conversations we should be having.
Yeah.
Very intimate conversation.
100%. And I love what you said about celebrating people a lot when they're alive,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like people don't do that. Like,
No.
at all. I mean, I was thinking back, you know, I do this thing sometimes where I'll take a week and I won't call anybody. It sounds kind of like manipulative or whatever, but just to see
who calls back,
just to see who checks in and who calls. And it's just interesting to note. And I honestly, I take so much time. I mean, every morning I wake up, I drop to my knees and I pray to God, and I'm grateful. And it sets my day up to live on this frequency of kindness and gratitude, which, you know, I want to talk about. But anytime a person crosses my mind, I will text them or call them and I will say, you know, I love you, or I'm grateful for who you are and what you're doing. And I think I'm not perfect. I mean, there's people in my life that I've screwed over. I cheated on my girlfriend, and I've ruined a lot of people's lives, frankly, through my ego, which I've now surpassed. And I still deal with it, but I just think it's so important to tell people when they're here
that you love them.
That you love them. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so important.
I think it's so important. I don't think we're celebrating the people in our lives as much as we should. And I know that I too, I get into my work grind, and I have businesses, and I'm trying to do a lot of different projects and stuff like that. But in the same respect, when someone's face or their name or some reason they pop up in my head, I always think that there's an underlying, maybe universal, maybe it's God, maybe it's this, maybe it's whatever, as to why that person's coming up into your head or into your thoughts or whatever, your line of sight. So I want to stop and kind of take note of that and appreciate it. And then, you know, text or call or email or whatever it is that you do with those people that you know, communicate with. I think there's a reason for that. So check in, because sometimes, like, if you don't check in, then all of a sudden, like, for instance, this wonderful person that I met through the industry when I first got in, he used to do our hair and makeup at the studio, and then I became friends with him and over years and years and years friends with him, and he would do my hair even out, you know, when I was living in Miami and when he wasn't working at set, and then I moved away and stuff like that, and then he kept popping in my head, and here was sudden, like, I was in Miami, he popped up, and I was like, I need to reach out to him, maybe go and see him, you know, take time, I need to do this.
Yeah.
And here I found out he passed. So it was like, oh, there is reasons why these people are coming up into your line of sight. So take a moment and reach out when you can.
Amen. I'm sorry for your loss. Do you think, because you mentioned God Do you believe in God? Are you religious?
I wouldn't say I'm religious. I would say I'm more spiritual. I do prayers all throughout the day. My prayers are very like, thank you so much for this life. Thank you for my breath. Thank you for my health. Thank you for my dog. Thank you for my job. Thank you that I can pay for a house.
Gratitude, baby.
Thank you for all the food in my fridge. And I think even those little gratitude prayers, I mean, they go a long way. And they've changed my life in a lot of ways. You know, whether I'm praying to the universe, praying to a God, praying to some faith or whatever, I think all universal, it's all the same. It's all the same mindset, I think, in the long run. And I think it's important that we bring that into our life, that we can, you know, say thank you for even the smallest little things of, hey, I got here on time.
Yeah, I didn't.
And we did. Yeah, well,
You
no,
did.
but you got here safe and you weren't in an accident.
I
you
almost
know?
crashed my car twice. Yesterday.
Well, it didn't happen.
Yesterday. I'm saying God's protecting me, baby. I'm chilling.
And I think about all those things, you know, times in my life where, you know, I feel that the universe has given me moments in my time of, hey, this is your second chance. Either do something with it or you're going to, you know, or something's going to happen, you know, or you're going to go down the wrong path. So it's like, okay, I'm woken up to that. Let's change out this life. Let's do this. Let's change out the habits. Hence why I quit the job, quit the friends, quit this, quit that. I wanted to make a massive change. And it just came to me. I was just like, I have to quit everything in order to make that change happen.
Yeah. I love that. I really do love that. You know, I think you mentioned like oneness in the universe, and the way that I'm Christian. So the way that I see that is it's Christ. Christ is all, it's all one. You know, we're all technically all one. And I even think about things like free will, right? Like my decision to invite you to the podcast, your free will decision to come to the podcast, all these things, like these micro decisions that in the grand scheme of things mean nothing because we're but a mist, as the Bible says. But I think it's so interesting that the universe puts us in these little places. And, you know, I'm curious about your thoughts on free will because, you know, while I do believe in it, I also think that technically there may not be free will. And I struggle with that because, you know, I had to be born by my father and my mother. They had to have sex at a certain time. They had to have met each other 30 years prior. They had to then, you know, decide to have the baby. Then I had to have been born. I had to survive 28 years of my life to today be here with you. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, was it my free will that I called you and we're hanging out? Or is there something else that's moving the strings, puppeteering this life? And so I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on free will? And do you think that like, is it science? Is it a puppeteer? Like, what's going on? That was a long question.
I think I think that, you know, it's crazy how certain things will happen in your life, and you're like, how did these Lego pieces land so perfectly, or this or that? And then, you know, I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers to everything, but or to this, but I think there's elements of free will, and I think there's elements of things just really lining up well. And I don't know if it's also, I do this a lot of times. Sometimes I will forget that I will set myself up for the future self. And I'm like, shit, I would like to thank my past self for setting up the future self to make this present happen.
You planted the seeds.
I planted those seeds. So I think there's elements of that, of planting the seeds. You know, we're put into a big group together, you know, the chances of that, rolling the dice. Yeah. You accepting, you know, to take me on to your podcast, which I know I'm probably not the normal guest or whatever. Or
You're the best guest.
Thank you so much. But, you know, that shows courage also on your part, because I know that sometimes people will look at what I do and they just, you know, forget that I'm actually human. So, and that's all they see is just that. So that's always interesting. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I don't ever judge. Have you ever dealt with hate? Like, do you deal with a lot of hate in what you do?
I think there's hate out there. I know there's hate out there. Yeah. And, you know, you'll see it in the trolling comments and stuff like that. But I don't spend any time on it. It's just not my mindset. I'm a big believer, whatever you put your energy to is what you're going to also get back. So if I feed into those, and sometimes I'll want to comment and I'll just delete it. And I'm just like, I'm just going to delete this and block it. What am I doing? This person either wants the attention or most of the time it's from a troll account. They have like 2 posts or 0 posts and following a bunch of people or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not worth your time.
You're like, why am I responding to Johnny in Kentucky right
Yeah,
now? Like sitting in his mom's
I'm
basement.
like, wait a minute, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm working out of my ego at that point, like, okay. And then I think that's, I really try to work on becoming self-aware. The more self-aware you become, the better you are working with other people, I think.
Amen.
And so, yeah, you get it. But my mindset's not there. I'm not going to argue or try to change someone's mind that is so hell-bent against what I do. Okay, you think what you want. You're totally allowed. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm sure you have your reasons, and that's totally cool. But, I'm not going to try to control your life. Don't try to control mine.
Yeah. Amen. I want to kind of talk about sinning for a second, and it's so random, but I've been dealing with sins in my life. Hating has been one of them. Like I used to respond to comments and I would talk back, and people hated my music. I'd be like, fuck you, like da. And that to me was a sin that I've now pulled back on. But I want to talk to you about sex as a sin, and for example, the gospel says you should have sex after marriage, and I'm just curious about your perspective on that mindset of sex, premarital sex being a sin, and also sharing your holy temple with many humans. Like do you ever have regret or any sort of pain, not physical pain, but like, yeah, I guess regret is the best word in terms of having the experience, given the experience that you've had in your adult life, in your adult film life?
Do I have any regret with doing what I do on set?
That, and also, do you disagree with the concept of premarital sex being a sin?
I don't really look at sins or anything like that. I'm not sitting around and think I'm sinning on this or sinning on that, okay, or anything. Like I do guide myself where, I want to be kind to others. So like some basic things of not lying and stealing or killing people or anything like that. But I think that's a personal decision and it can be respected. I think these are decisions that people, when getting in a relationship, should have. I'm not saying have the body count BS conversation, but where do you lie within that? I haven't had any relationship experience where people are like, I consider it a sin. That would be something that I would want to talk about with somebody before even getting in a relationship with them. I think more people should have more conversations before getting in a relationship.
Amen.
So I don't really look at things like that. Like I don't sit around and think, oh, premarital sex is sin. But I'm also not religious.
Yeah.
But if somebody wants to believe that, that's totally up to them. I'm not going to sit there and tell them that they're wrong. I mean, whatever they want to believe in, if that's what it is, that's totally cool.
Yeah.
That might be not somebody I would, would want to date me even.
Sure. But there's plenty of dudes out there. Yeah.
But yeah, I almost forget the other part of your question. But yeah, I don't really look at it as a sin because I just don't really think about it that way at all.
Yeah.
And I don't regret anything because also I don't regret anything. I'm very honest with anybody that starts to talk to me if there's a dating aspect or anything like that. I'm very upfront. I'm very honest. I know what I'm able to accept and where my boundaries are. And if that doesn't match up with a person, then I'm cool with just being friends or no friends at all.
Yeah.
But I'm very upfront. I like having all those conversations before we even go to dinner. Let's have a coffee date. Let's get it all out.
Yeah.
See if we want to even spend 2 hours at dinner together, because sometimes you don't, right?
Yeah.
And I don't regret anything I do on set because I'm working with other professionals. I'm not going to the bars, trying to break up marriages and trying to be like that. And I'm very the opposite. I don't go out. I'll probably be in bed by 8:30 if I have anything to do with it. But that's me, that's me. And the people that I work with on set are professionals. Everybody on set is getting paid to be there. They know why they're there. They're sober. We go through boundary checklist. We have a legal. We have to verify. I've been doing this for almost 15 years, and I have to show my ID every single time.
Wow.
Every single time we show our IDs. Every single time I have to prove of who I am, that I am coherent, that I am aware of what I'm doing. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's pretty lengthy legal. And even on my own production sets, it's the same thing. So whether it's I'm doing it for OF or I'm doing it for main studios, we go through all these things. So I don't regret anything because I make sure that everything that I do on set is what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And everybody's okay with it.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's professional standards that you guys abide
standards.
By. Got it. Very interesting. I'm also curious. We only got a couple minutes left, but I wanted to just ask you a personal question. Has being in the adult industry sort of numbed you from your sex life in your personal life?
No.
Is sex as enjoyable still in your personal life?
Well, sex is totally different what I do on set compared to what I do in my intimate home. For what I do on camera, adult entertainment, I'm doing positions and stuff projected to the camera for the viewer to watch. It's more entertainment. It's not always the most comfortable positions because you got to open up for the camera. The camera's got to get in there. Now we also have a thing called Gonzo, which is a little bit more free flow type of, but once you've done all the 5 major positions that you see in the videos, it just becomes clockwork. At home, there's closeness, there's more eye contact, there's no camera I have to perform for. I don't have to look a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have to perform for anybody.
Yeah.
Big difference. On camera or on set, I'm performing. There's a performance aspect to it. There's stop and goes. Sometimes it's not always fluid. There's some ridiculous scripts that are out there. But at home, man, if we want to just kiss and have that's intimacy to me. Missionaries, I'm probably the most boring person you could probably think of.
That is pretty boring.
It's always surprising. They're like, you like what? And I'm like, yeah, I like to be I like to be held and have that closeness and to have eye contact. I mean, sex is completely different in my personal life compared to what I do on camera.
Yeah.
Not that I don't enjoy myself on camera. I do too, but there's not every time, but there's not that I have a bad time on camera, but I'm just saying there's you're performing for a certain thing where at home you're not. There's no performance. There's no performance. I'm not Alexis Fawx at home.
Yeah.
Alexis Fawx is a character name.
Yeah. How did you get that name?
I did the dancing bear scene that I told you about.
Okay.
And they were like, oh, you're really great. Would you like to come back? And I was like, how much? What? Oh, this is easy. Okay, sure. And they're like, okay, well, what's your name? And I was like, oh, I have to come up with a name. So I called my friend that was in marketing, and being the Air Force, AF. Excuse me. My first initial, my real name is A. And so we're just a play on words instead of, say, Fox. It was supposed to be like Fox or something like that. Alexis, whatever. FAWX. The A would put you on the top list of awards and nominations. FAWX will also put you above FOX.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a reason why it's spelled those certain way.
Yeah. Strategic.
Yeah. So I just called my marketing friend and he helped me come up with a name. So yeah, this was not pre-planned. I didn't go down to, didn't answer that Craigslist ad saying, okay, I'm going to go down there and be Alexis Fawx today. I'm like, I'm going to go down and see what's up. What's happening?
Yeah. It's so cool. We have to wrap. I hate to do this because I feel like we're ending on sort of an unfinished note, and so
I can always come back.
I was just gonna say I would love to have you for a part 2. I think there's a lot of things that on my list that I would still love to talk about because you're an entrepreneur. You have different companies, and I want to dive into that mindset and learn from you there. But also I want to talk about other things like I was just reading a statistic that said that 75% of people that watch porn have self-image and anxiety issues. And so those are the kinds of things I want to talk to you about. I would love to have you back.
I'll touch on that just really quick because, and it really made me super healthy when I first got in because when I first got into the industry, I was super skinny. I wasn't working out. Didn't have my nutrition on point, didn't have my sleeping on point, didn't have any on point. And then I saw myself on camera and then Twitter was coming out and I realized, oh my gosh, the effect that I can have on so many people. I've got to put out a good image and not only just put out the good image but also be that good image. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I started doing, fixing my physical part getting the nutrition, going out and working out and doing that. Then I worked on my mental and my emotional and really hit all that really super hard. And because I wanted, if I'm going to have any influence, I want it to be a positive, inspiring influence. You know, take care of your health, take care of you. And also be silly, be goofy. If you look at my IG, I'm goofy. I'm
You're
not
super
wearing
goofy,
makeup.
yeah.
I'm not wearing makeup. I don't care.
I love how real you are.
Yeah. And I hope, if anything, that just makes people feel more comfortable with themselves so that they can just go out in this world and be their unique, beautiful, amazing selves and be the successful that they can be and allow that abundance to come into their life. That's what I would hope.
Yeah.
So
that's a beautiful way. That's a beautiful way to end it. Thank you so much, Alexis.
Thank you for having
I really
me.
appreciate you. God willing, we can do a part 2 and get
Yeah.
deeper into it. But if people don't follow you already, where can they find you?
You can follow me on IG. It's Alexis Fawx Live. And if you want coffee, it's haf.coffee and
Love
the Highest
coffee.
Fox podcast.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you made it this far, that'd be really cool if you did. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for another episode coming soon. Go follow Alexis. God willing, stay for the part 2. And see you guys in the next one. Peace.